Okay, hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining me. Let's see here. So this session is about automating the assessment process. So let me go ahead and share my screen so that you can follow what I have to say. Let me just put it in. Okay. Hey, good afternoon. My name is Yarek Yanyo, and I've been talking about artificial intelligence and how to use it in education, ever since I kind of found out about ChatGPT. Um, and I'm sure that many of you have done pretty much, same things. People are asking questions constantly. It's been over 2 years now, and we are kind of in it together. So we are trying to figure out what to do. Now, what I am here to tell you is that as much as we like to ask questions of others, um, probably the most powerful and most insightful entity that's out there that's going to help you answer those questions is actually ChatGPT. I don't think it's necessarily human beings anymore. The question, however, and I hope I made this point during my previous session, and I think that's where my thinking about artificial intelligence, its application in education, leads me to think is that we are the ones who are going to be deciding what types of questions we need to ask of ChatGPT. See, right now, this way of conveying the content, instructing people, I really hope that this is going to go away, that is going away as we speak, simply because I don't know, to be honest, how much of what it is that I'm saying makes sense to you, how much of it is interesting to you, how much of it is relevant to you. I'm just here to speak for about an hour. So I certainly would like to engage you in a discussion. So please don't hesitate to ask questions of me as I go along. But as I talked about the topic of automating the assessment process, I would like to point out that with AI in our classrooms, as we can safely say is the case right now, we are capable, we have the tools to provide feedback to students, to assess their learning, to evaluate what it is that they know in a spirit of the moment. It can be a process that's completely ongoing. We don't have to be waiting until the weekend, to grade papers if that's what we want to still do. There is different types of assessments that could be utilized, could be taken advantage of. And I think that the assessment landscape, what it is that means for us as faculty to assess student learning, that's changing very, very, very quickly. It's in many regards has been really flipped upside down. So let's explore the topic. So first of all, how is AI transforming the process? Uh, sure. Again, I would love to hear your comments, your thoughts. So if you feel like you would like to speak on any of those topics, don't hesitate to raise your hand. I'll make sure you can be unmuted, and we'll take it from there. But I'm happy to engage in the discussion if you have any questions, or put them in the chat as well. We do have chat going here, so please let me know that way, and I'll be happy to engage you in a discussion, help you articulate your point, and collectively perhaps we could address the questions that you may have. Alrighty then. So with that, AI's role in transformation of the assessment process. Well, if nothing else, first of all, the assessment process, as Cindy and Jillian, our keynote speakers, indicated, is collection of data of student learning in order to improve instruction. And that this is a very, very, very packed statement. It's just that, and then on top of it, we have artificial intelligence that really puts a completely different spin on what it means to assess student learning. The reason for that is that teachers, as you may have already observed, are not the sages in the middle of the stage anymore. ChatGPT and other AI tools provide support to student learning in ways that are still difficult to imagine. But ultimately, students and ourselves, we are all going to be taking more, as a result, more responsibility of what it is that we do in the classrooms. We are responsible for the content that we are providing, not ChatGPT. Google can give us answers to questions, but we are still supposed to be sharing what we think students need to know in order to advance their learning in the context of the classroom, in the context of the discipline that we are teaching. So when it comes to probably the biggest transformation when it comes to assessment is the fact that now student learning could be could be, and it is assessed in a highly individualized, personalized manner. Our students expect the feedback, and I tell you, before COVID, I mean, we all know, and we many of us still do, right? As I mentioned, those weekends when we endless weekends when we grade heaps of papers, and that's true in a lot of disciplines, right? As a matter of fact, English writing or writing in English is a skill that's required of students entering probably any college class. And as I mentioned in a conversation with my colleague Erin from Coastline, we just talked about this, that students in the business class are expected to possess certain English proficiency skills, and they should be capable of writing papers to justify their points of view, their opinions, and articulate thoughts. It's just that they are missing it. They are just not as proficient as we think they should be. So now we have ChatGPT that can be very helpful, um, making sure, helping students learn how to write. With that, there are some vendors that I have mentioned in previous sessions that would help you for ESL. There is the Pace AI. If you like, you can look them up, but they are the ones who provide feedback for writing. Students can interact with text, so can Feedback Fruits, and I think that Erin has had some experience with them, so you can probably uh, check them out as well. Feedback Fruits is a vendor that's okay, that's already working with Chancellor's Office, with our system of community colleges in California, and they can be also very easily embedded in the Canvas shells. Now, considering the fact that um, assessment of student learning can happen at the completely different, much more sophisticated, much more in-depth manner, I think what happens is that the landscape of assessment has shifted for us with an advent of AI. And what I mean by that is that all of a sudden, we are in a position to ask questions and understand better what it is that students are trying to get out of our classrooms. Ultimately, when we think about it, for years, for decades, for millennia even, we've been focused on what it is that students can remember as a result of interaction with us. And this is a funny anecdote. There's this guy on YouTube, a stand-up comedian who opens up his own university for $20. I think he says it's a very inexpensive school. It will teach you everything that you remember 5 years after graduating from college. And he goes into things like, okay, what is it that you remember from business 5 years after you have graduated from college? Well, buy low, sell high. That's your business class already. What is it that you need to know from economy in 5 years after you finish college? Supply and demand. What do you need to know in theology? God is everywhere. And he kind of, like, mocks all our subject areas that we spend so much time working with our students. And then at the end, he says that our students could that we are just really in no position to make sure that students remember anything else from our classes. And unfortunately, that's as ridiculous as it sounds. It really bypasses the whole aspect of skill and competency attainment, because he's absolutely right that when it comes to remembering of specific facts and figures, we don't remember any of them. But or let's just say we don't remember majority of them. But we did acquire certain skills and competencies that are much, much, much more important than uh, state capitals or even chemical or math formulas that will take us anywhere in the future. What happens is that as a result of the instructional process, we learn how to analyze certain phenomena, whatever they happen to be. Because to be honest, chemistry lab is not something that I interact with in everyday life at home or at work for that matter, but understanding of how chemistry works makes me helps me make those jumps into other areas that, see, when you put two variables together, they interact, they mix, and I need to be aware that this is what's taking place, that nothing ever exists in the context, that critical thinking, thought articulation, um, creation of convincing arguments is necessary, is vital in any topic area, any subject, any situation. I thinking of my feet and trying to make sense out of reality is what I do constantly. We all do. And see, the more time you spend in the classroom, it seems, no matter what happens to you, these are the things that you get out of instruction. So again, it may not necessarily be facts and figures alone, but the fact that you can think critically because you've been exposed enough of this critical thinking over the years. And now, even if we were to just leave the concept of critical thinking with us for the purpose of this discussion, when it comes to specific skill and competency attainment, critical thinking is an observable behavior. And once we realize then that's what it is, well, guess what? We can assess it, because we can tell when students demonstrate critical thinking, when they demonstrate analysis of a certain phenomena, when they can synthesize things, when they evaluate them, when they create new knowledge. Those are all observable with skills. And that's why Bloom's taxonomy is our friend. And all of a sudden, we have realized that ChatGPT is there, or artificial intelligence, more broadly speaking, is there to make sure that this is what happens, that our students actually know that they can ask questions, they can get answers, and as a result, they can move their ideas forward. They can solve problems relating to their daily lives. They can ask questions that were not possible to be answered before, that they can take ownership of their own learning and move their own thinking to spheres that were just impossible before to observe. So the focus on competency and skill, whether we like it or not, this is what ChatGPT delivers with much higher, much better efficiency than any classroom ever before. So for the aspect of assessment when it comes to skill and competency as observable behavior, all of a sudden becomes as a perfect example of assessment that can be put into place, that can be put into real life instantly. This is, again, something that we all grapple with as we try to abolish or at least alter um, the notion of the faculty as the sage on the stage who is going to be taking care of business in the high school, in the classroom for everyone forever. This is not the case anymore. The assessment of skill and competency will tell you as faculty member what students are getting out of the course. Because again, those skills and competencies are what students are going to take away from your classroom for the rest of their lives. They may not necessarily, again, remember what's the capital of Somalia. They may not remember chemical formulas, but why these things matter and how to access the information, that's the crux of it. On top of it, there is again the knowledge creation, the answer to the question why. Why do I need to know how formulas interact with each other? Why do I need to know how society works? Why do I need to know why I'm studying literature to express empathy later in life? Just some examples. But again, these are very specific skills that can be very observable, and ChatGPT and artificial intelligence tools can equip students with better understandings and skills, competencies to understand, to interact with those tools. So the streamlining of the assessment process and then the personalized feedback is something that just seemingly seamlessly seeps into our classrooms, right? The three S's that all of a sudden came to my mind. Those are the concepts that are so obvious in our classrooms right now. That with feedback as it can be arranged these days with this massive with this huge capacity for ChatGPT and other AI tools to analyze massive amounts of data are just such very powerful tools at our disposal that we really it's difficult for us to ignore them. And again, many of us are asking questions. I mean, look, we are here still in a more traditional setup, listening to someone who seemingly has something to say on the topic. But I can only assure you, I don't claim to be an expert on AI. I am not an expert on assessment. As a matter of fact, there is just so many things that all of a sudden I realize I don't know, that it puts me in this very humble spot where all of a sudden I realize how much over the years I was still walking with on the notions of what it is that I have learned in my own experience without realizing that there is just so many people around me who are sharing similar thoughts, and then there is others who are completely different, and we just couldn't connect. So now with ChatGPT, the practical integration of the artificial assessment into I think again hinges upon the notion of students taking ownership of their own learning. So if I cannot make a stronger case for making sure that students are not left alone with comments from us, and that's where the story is over. No. Our assignments, our interactions with students, our whatever it is that our instructional activities are, they all need to be leading to the goals of empowerment as understood by the fact that students are the ones who are responsible for the content that they create. So I am not the one who is going to tell them what to do. They are the ones who need to be asking questions about how to enhance their growth and make it a reality for their own benefit. They are the ones that need to know that learning math is going to help them with critical thinking in the future. As a matter of fact, when we talked about applications of artificial intelligence in the classrooms just a couple months ago, someone quoted this research that students who do best out of all majors, or who are the graduates, right? Who are the graduates who do best in what majors? And it looks that students who are taking high level math courses are overall much more successful later in life than any other major. So that realization alone should probably help students understand and take advantage of the fact that right now they are free to explore. See, as professionals, we think about things all the time. It's just that now, when I want to create whatever it is that I want to be creating, I don't have to be making a phone call to anybody. I don't have to send an email in the middle of the night and wait a couple of weeks for someone to get back to me. I can go to ChatGPT and receive feedback at the time when I need it. Very, very, very important part of that feedback is when it comes to, again, the practical integration of assessment is not necessarily the realization that this is just in time feedback, as much as the fact that we can take it, we should take it to a higher level. And that's the level of questioning of the reality, questioning of what it is that I'm learning, the purpose of that learning, what am I getting out of this? What am I really doing with my life? Sitting in the classroom, making sure that I'm listening to the professor, abiding by the school rules. So let's take a look at some of the practical aspects of AI assessment. Grading and feedback tasks, as I mentioned, those vendors are there. You can use ChatGPT and you can obviously provide feedback to students in Canvas really much with much greater efficiency than ever before. One caution here, this is a really important caution. When you interact with AI tools, with artificial intelligence, and you provide feedback to students, please make sure that you do not disclose your student's name. You don't copy and paste them into ChatGPT. That's one of those FERPA regulations that we need to abide by. And it's true. I don't know if students, we don't own students' identities to the point that we can share them with the world, right? That's my point. So if this is a research project, there is the RB process, and other things. That's a completely different discussion. But in the classroom, please make sure that you do not disclose your student's name. You don't interact with the database using students' real names and their identities. Again, there's an easy way of replacing students' names with numbers or nicknames and so forth, even in Excel, if you need to do it, or in Word, that's possible too. So again, that's a discussion. You can probably look at videos on YouTube or ask ChatGPT how to do it. But you don't have to be providing students' name or even their ID numbers in the real ID numbers, that is in chat. So now when it comes to the skill and competency evaluation, again, I think I spoke enough about this. That the biggest benefit here is that students are students at any given point, whatever it is that they produce. And I think I need to stress that point, that they not only they take responsibility for their content, and structuring the discussion that way is a little bit, well, let's just say different than telling students, please make sure that this paper has, this text has 500 words or 1,000 words, and it's due on Thursday afternoon. The question is what it is that students are saying. So in other words, all of a sudden, because of the act of writing that's taken away by ChatGPT, it can create, well, again, seemingly flawless essays. Students need to realize that they are the ones who are responsible for those essays, right? They can't just copy and paste text from ChatGPT. They need to review, they need to edit, they need to make sure that the thinking that they are trying to project is well articulated. And I would like to focus for a moment on this aspect of thinking, content, responsibility. Again, in the past, we simply couldn't do it any other way. We had to pay attention to grammar, to fact and figure recollection, because that was not only the easiest way of evaluating students, but probably the only way, right? I've been talking to you for an hour. I've been talking to you for 2 hours. You've been in this course for 3 weeks. Now, please tell me what you've learned. So let's do it again. Let's revisit the facts and figures that we have discussed. And again, this part of the discussion is where the story ended when it comes to assessment. Students didn't have to necessarily learn anything above and beyond what's expected on the on the test. There wasn't any expectation of them to take their learning forward or even seeking any deeper understanding. It was just the case okay, this is the content of the course. I want you to review it and repeat it. Just give it to me as the best you can. I'll consider your attendance, punctuality, other aspects of it, and here's your grade, B plus. So now the question is, again, even with the grading system, not that it grades you grades you can assign to pretty much anything, but when it comes to a final grade at the end of the course, when you think about it, okay, student who has a B plus, who receives a B plus in an English 101 course, can that student read better or write better? The grade doesn't tell you that at all. Doesn't even try. Instead, we can now rely on ChatGPT and other AI tools that will give very specific feedback to the students on those two abilities. And I think that's where the assessment of student learning is focused on pointing out what skills and competencies students get out of the instructional activities and what skills and competencies students can transfer to other areas, and what difference do these skills and competencies make in students' lives in the long run. Ultimately, that's what we should be responsible for, and that's what should be at the core of our instructional activities, right? Making sure that students learn, and once they have learned, that they demonstrate specific behaviors that will attest to the fact that students are learning. Now, I didn't talk much about this, but the faculty workload is something that's always considered. Again, we talk about this aspect of artificial intelligence application constantly. Um, Faculty, for the most part, are very busy people, right? And especially before AI, before Canvas, before online instruction, we spend hours and hours and hours trying to provide students with feedback. Now, to what extent that feedback was ever taken advantage of by the students, that's anybody's guess, because especially when we have large lecture classes where we don't really have luxury of spending too much time on individual students, that feedback was very general in nature. And again, it was taken for granted. It was always assumed that teachers don't have time to be providing the individual's feedback to every student 24/7, 100% of the time. However, now again, with its capacity to process the amounts of large amounts of data, the artificial intelligence can save us a lot of time. And ultimately, thanks to the fact that the skills and abilities at the bottom of the Bloom's taxonomy scale are taken by AI, the fact that students, we can spit out the quizzes and all kinds of different types of assessments that ask for fact and figure recollection on the part of the students, or even evaluation of tasks that is based on recollection of certain things, then those things can be very easily these days assessed by AI. Now, when it comes to teachers, we, on the other hand, can focus on the message. So this is when it comes to the assessment as an important integral part of what we do in the classrooms. That's where the floodgates of assessment possibilities open up, because all of a sudden we don't necessarily have to rely on the written text alone. We don't have to rely even on the presentation. There are all kinds of things that students can do online. They can create, again, using ChatGPT, not necessarily copying and pasting the text type of an essay, but they can create, just imagine, poems about psychology, right? They can write songs about math equations. They can create dialogues, presentations. They could create podcasts. They can um, do all kinds of things that were really difficult to obtain in the past. That's why everybody, meaning most of the disciplines, were falling down on this on reading and writing as main forms of assessment. Read chapter 7 and then write an essay on it. Um, but now we have a myriad of all kinds of different assessment, different venues that students can take advantage of to demonstrate their learning. So again, this connection between what it is that students can do, what their strengths are, can be implemented, can be integrated into pretty much any discipline. So if a student creates a website on concepts in psychology, chemistry, philosophy, math, here they are. ChatGPT can create HTML. As a matter of fact, the word out there is that it's going to replace programming altogether because it's becoming more and more powerful. There's just going to be more and more features that are going to be available to students and their faculty to evaluate student learning. Now, what we may not necessarily forget in this process here is that yes, Jane, just a second. Sure. Just one moment. Thank you very much for the question. I'll do it in the next couple of slides. Um, then the variety of the assessments is what students and teachers need to agree that that's a given. So in other words, we are not going to be, again, asking students to simply recall information. They are going to be responsible for making sure that they know what they are talking about with the tools, skills, and competencies that are available to them. And that's a very important realization when you think about it, because if my English is not good enough, then I will always be afraid to speak, no matter how much of an expert I feel in a given discipline. If writing is not my strong thing, that's I'm just not good at writing, okay, then I'm always going to be failing, no matter what the discipline is that I am studying. So these concepts, again, are enabled by the presence of artificial intelligence in the classroom. We focus on content, on what it is that we are trying to reach, what is it that we are trying to teach the students in terms of their skill and competency rather than fulfilling the course requirements. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Jane, for the question. Now, the same discussions are coming into play when we talk about equity through AI-driven assessment. Um, the access to assessment tools, again, with the advent of AI, the artificial intelligence tools, again, yeah, we can talk for a long time about the different tiers and how some things are more expensive than others when it comes to AI tools that are implemented out there. ChatGPT at the most basic of levels, if this is a starting point, is still very, very, very powerful. It's a tool that's at our disposal that we simply did not have access to before. They do have a $20 subscription model, and then there's a $200 a month subscription model, if you didn't know that, for a very profound, very much more sophisticated type of data analysis and evaluation of materials. There are limits when it comes to the number of materials that you can submit to ChatGPT. But when it comes to the demonstration of the SS, oh yes, I think I can address Jane's question here. The tool that I really 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 like that's kind of like became a thing very recently is Google Notebook. If you haven't seen it, and I'm not going to go too much into the detail with it. I will just show you that it's completely free. You don't even have to sign in. You just need to kind of like keep track of it. Make sure that before you close everything, I think it may disappear if you don't sign in. So keep that in mind. But here, all you really need to do is when you create a new notebook, what you need to do is go to ChatGPT, and maybe I can, since Jane is asking a demonstration, so let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to go to ChatGPT, This is my ChatGPT subscription window, and I am going to say, okay, how can I assess student learning in an asynchronous classroom? And that's very, very important for me. Again, if you could please observe, I am actually asking for a skill. Please assess student learning. Assessment is a skill. So that's the important discussion as far as I'm concerned, because we very often forget how much of skill and competency actually is present, how much skills and competencies are present in our classrooms. We just don't pay attention to them because we are focused on grades, right? We are making sure that students turn in their work on time. Okay, thank you very much for Dorothy for the comment. So again, this is the content that I have created with ChatGPT that is very important before you move on to Google Notebook. I can copy this right here. And now I'm going to go to the Notebook LM. And here, I have all kinds of different things that I can do. I can upload different sources. And I tell you, I think you can upload here up to, oh gosh, 50 PDF documents, like 50. When you think about it, that's a huge amount. And then you don't even have to ask anything. I'll show you what Notebook LM can do with this. So it will take Google Docs, Google Slides. You can put a link to a website. So as long as it's not password protected, it works. A YouTube video, and then there is a copied text. So why don't I click on that? Copy the text because this is what ChatGPT told me. And when I click on insert, Google Notebook starts working instantly. And now it takes you to a different screen, but look, it's already done here for me. And automatically it creates study guide, it creates briefing doc, frequently asked questions, and a timeline if applicable, right? So let's go ahead and start with the study guide. And this is going to generate a study guide for the specific topic I just copied and pasted, right? It really doesn't take that long. Again, if you have a number of documents that you are going to be using, then they are going to all show up here, and you can actually analyze them one by one. So let's take a look at the study guide. And there we go. Assessing learning in a synchronous environment, a study guide. If you want, this is just a perfect start for your professional development activity with the faculty on your campus, right? And again, this is the short answer quiz, there's the answer key, there's the essay questions, there's the glossary of terms. Everything's there in a spirit of the moment. I mean, literally in seconds. Now, what I would like to do, if I were to close this part, I would like to show you a very, very powerful feature that makes Google Notebook such a memorable tool is the podcast feature. And thanks to this tool, I have developed the podcast channels for our coaches group for student learning outcomes. And I tell you, it's a very, 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 let's just say, not time consuming process, right? Or very time saving process. That's what I was trying to say. And it allows for a very profound analysis. There are limits, and I'll let you explore it with Google and YouTube. If you were to use YouTube and just type there something about Google Notebook, then there are people who analyze the whole thing in much greater depth. The tool itself is changing, but all I really need to do is click on the generate button, and the podcast with the topics that we are discussing is being generated. It takes a little bit longer than the text, but after that process, you get a podcast. You're going to hear voices of two people who are talking, and they really sound like NPR commentators. They really sound like radio voices, like human voices. They don't really sound like those robotic things that you hear sometimes in other AI tools. But that would be it. So let me see here. So Jane was the one who asked the question. So I think Jane, again, I'm glad that you asked because that allows me to demonstrate this process. What I would do is again create the content for assessment in ChatGPT, then put it in a Google Notebook and create all those documents. And all of a sudden, I have all these options. Now, how do I apply this to students? Well, first of all, instead of prohibiting them from following these steps, I would specifically teach these steps so that students can follow the same steps. And now ultimately the podcast, really cool. Students can send it to me. At least we can listen to it. If there is if there is a text behind it, if there is transcript, then we can certainly take advantage of that as well. We can take a look and then ask ChatGPT to analyze it too. The point here though is that, see, I don't have to be the sage of the stage anymore. If all my students in my class have access to these tools, what's stopping me from having this content evaluated by other students in the classroom? So let's just say there is about 33 people here in this presentation. Just imagine if I were to ask you a question, you would create your own content. You would tell me you have created it and create a podcast. And now I'm going to evaluate as a participant in this course, as one of the students, I'm going to evaluate 5 of you. And you're going to send me the podcasts with the transcripts, and then I have to send it through ChatGPT, evaluate it, and send you feedback about what it is that I think about your presentation. In that process, what I would like to point out, I have to do it to 5 of you, which means that I have to evaluate the same content, the same question from 5 different perspectives, coming from my mind using ChatGPT and other artificial intelligence tools to help me articulate my point. So if I were to create a briefing doc or frequently asked question as a result of this, okay, I have to do it myself for 5 people. Now, when you think about it, how can you replicate this process in a more traditional classroom without ChatGPT, without Google Notebook, without artificial intelligence? How boring would it be for students to go from text to text to text to text? It's just, this is what teachers are doing, right? On weekends, this is what we do. We look at the text, and that's what I would have to do. Analyze 33 texts, give individual students feedback, and then it just disappears because once the grade is given, nobody really, unless students come back and say, I don't want a B plus, I want an A minus. That's the end of the conversation. But see, in this process, if I have to evaluate 5 of my peers' content, then all of a sudden, whether I like it or not, you know what happens? I gain the competency. I become an expert because I have to look at the content that other people have created and I have to give specific feedback. As a matter of fact, what the teacher could ask me to do is create a video in which I discuss what was the way I see that my colleagues have articulated the given points. And let's just say within the next week or 2 or 3 or whatever the timeline is, students are going to be uploading their own videos about what it is that they have specifically learned from their peers' materials, what is important for them, how they are going to apply to solve their own problems, how they are going to apply it in their future classes, and again, how they would use whatever they've learned to reach the tip of Bloom's taxonomy to create new knowledge. So I'll pause at this just 1 second. We'll listen to podcast in just a second. I just want to make sure that we have. Okay, Dorothy, would be great for you to speak. We'll just listen to the podcast, and if you could please, I'll try to unmute you, and we'll hear what you have to say. So if I could please have your attention for just a moment.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We are jumping into a tricky topic today, something I know a lot of you struggle with.
Yeah.
And that is, how do we really know our students are learning in an asynchronous classroom?
Yeah, it's tough.
Right. We could hope they get it, but we
Hmm.
want to see those skills in action.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
know, it's more than just understanding. We need to see that knowledge applied. We want to see those skills.
So where do we even begin with that?
Well, you got to start with a good foundation.
Yeah.
And that means getting really clear about our student learning outcomes, our SLOs, right?
Right. So those
So,
big.
bro,
Wait a minute, how do they even know about SLOs? What's going on here? It's really very, very revealing, very empowering when I think about it. Again, it's all there for the taking, and they are having a conversation about it. This is just really truly amazing power that rests right here at my fingertips. I can slowly do this. And again, if I only ask our students to replicate this process, they are not only developing the skills that have to do with digital literacy, but they are also developing the skills of critical thinking and again, taking ownership of their own learning. Uh, Dorothy, please, if I could pick on you, would you please elaborate on your question?
Oh, sure. I
Oh,
was just sharing how I use Google Notebook LM this semester with my students. So
uh-huh.
before the beginning of the semester, I actually, sorry, I'll turn on my camera so that you can see, hopefully. Oh, it's not working today. Sorry.
We can see
So
your picture.
basically, I compiled everything, my syllabus, my culminating project, all of the standards and frameworks, my curriculum resources, everything that was shared within my course. And I pulled it all together in Google Notebook LM. And then I just did the automatic, like create all of the different resources and podcasts. And then I tested it out by typing questions asking it different things related to my course, in particular the culminating assignment, because that is one that my students usually have a lot of questions on. And it was pretty helpful. So I actually shared it out with my students at the beginning of the semester as a resource so that they could also look at that too. I mean, they could ask me questions, but at the same time, I thought it'd be something that they would find helpful. I haven't asked them yet whether or not they're using it. We're only in the second week of the semester, so I plan to actually ask them if they have found it useful or not.
Since I have your attention here, if you don't mind, how do you see the aspect of this of formative assessment, right? Giving students feedback for about what it is that they learn throughout the semester. How do you think those tools are going to be useful to you?
I think, well, I teach an educational technology course
Oh,
that's asking students to design online courses or online curriculum. So I actually asked them to look at, I tried to model different tools so that they can then think through how they might be able to leverage those tools in their particular instance. So in this case, I leveraged it for using it as a resource, and hopefully later in the semester, as I play more, we just had access to Google Notebook LM not too long ago, so I haven't had time to play through with all of the features, but I do plan to actually now utilize it to be able to curate all of the different research and things that I work on as well, and be able to share that with my students on different topics that we work on. I just haven't had a chance to pull it all together yet.
right. Excellent. That's very good observation. That's exactly right. Again, throughout the semester, you can kind of like make sure again that students utilize these tools, that they create their own content, and they are engaged. And I tell you, from what I see in my ESL classes, all of a sudden the student engagement is through the roof, or students are really there doing the work, if that's what I'm after, right? But at the end of it, we do have polls, we have quizzes, we can still have those what we may call traditional methods of assessment, where students can still attest to the fact that they've learned. It's just they did it in this again rich context of technology infused classroom where they actually utilize AI tools for their own learning. One thing, Dorothy and others, if you could please observe, this is a new feature that's about a month or so new. It's an interactive mode. Here, what you can do is you will have to again. I'm not going to demonstrate it right here, but you could allow for the speaker it could you can allow the microphone used on your computer, and then you can actually ask questions as those two two voices talk. So again, I'm sure that this is only going to grow. Imagine that feature embedded there, right? That students, again, once they are given a content that's projected, that's given to them in form of a podcast, and now they have to interact with it. So again, they don't even have to have me. They listen to those two voices talking, and in the middle of it, they ask a question. They ask a follow-up question, and then perhaps ask for some kind of a summary. I just can't think of a better way to assess students' speaking, critical thinking skills, and again, ability to analyze and synthesize and evaluate the content of the course, find themselves in the situation of the conversation, and ultimately attest, show me that there are things that they can actually do. Just absolutely fascinating. Again, with complete disregard to who the teacher is when you think about it, right? Those files could be transferred electronically, uploaded in Canvas. Students have access to them. Again, please keep in mind the FERPA regulations, but students have access to these things, and they can manipulate the content to their to the extent that they see fit to the extent that's necessary for them.
I did try that feature out. It is pretty
you
cool
did?
where I tried to interject and ask about something in my course, like another frequently asked question. I guess my question then would be, do you happen to know, because I don't think there is a feature that allows the recording of the interjection. I think it's just an interaction at that time. So when you're talking about assessment, I know there's FERPA and other things that are integrated that we need to be aware of. But what have you seen any use cases in regards to utilizing that for capturing it as an assessment piece and submitting for an assignment or any other use cases?
Right. So again, this interaction that you just mentioned, that becomes a file at the end, and that file can be downloaded. So this is not a live discussion that if not recorded disappears. This is, you have and again, Dorothy, if you like, we can probably, like, at some point, why don't you send me an email? We can talk about this. But the bottom line is that the students' voices can be recorded in the midst of the conversation. When the conversation is over, the whole podcast becomes a file. You can download it, right? I think I mentioned that. And then that file can be used for anything. It could be, again, sent anywhere, and students can interact with it again if they need to edit the sound. So that's what it's for. But the idea is that those voices actually react to what students are saying, and I think that's what makes it so powerful. So that's ultimately, yes, you absolutely can. When it comes to this personalization of feedback, I mean, I don't know if there is a better tool when you think about it, because the topic of the conversation can be anything. However, again, the reason I don't want to demonstrate it is because it takes a while to generate the audio files, and also when it comes to specifically to Google Notebook, there are certain limits. It's a completely free tool that's developed by Google. They alone are the trillion-dollar company, right? Or 2 trillion, 3 trillion, whatever they are. So I'm sure that they are going to be coming with more and more sophisticated tools. It's just that right now you can't, for example, specify the length of the podcast. You really can't tell whether the conversation goes where you think it should go. There is a feature where you can specify. See, when you create the podcast, you can customize it. So you can ask, please make sure that you focus on 1, 2, 3 aspects of the content, and then the participants of the discussion, the discussion goes into the exploration of the topic. It does stay focused. But whether the conversation comes up to be 5 minutes long or 15 minutes long, you apparently don't have any say, any jurisdiction over that. Susan, please, would you like to speak to the topic?
Oh, sure. I just was curious. One of the things that has always made me nervous about using AI for various learning tasks is I don't want to give my, materials that I create. I don't want to give them to somebody else, a company like Google. You know, but I don't know what the ownership issues are. So if I load materials into this Google Notebook, does Google now have permanent access to that?
So, okay, so first of all, I honestly, I honestly don't know. You can probably go through their fine print. But the question that I would have, ask ChatGPT, right? Or how can I turn off so that you guys don't take ownership of this? I just would like to use your features, right?
Yeah.
The same thing is with Google. So I'm sure it's there. Now, at the same time, however, I'm asking myself, like, okay, what do I care? In a sense that, like, why does it matter to me that they have access to the material that I have created on my own? In a sense that, if my material helps them build a better database, then I would say, hey, if I can make a difference in the gazillions of materials that you already have in your brain, then knock yourself out. What difference does it make? Now, another part of the issue here, though, Susan, is the confidentiality, right, and data privacy. Again, if this has to do with specific public records, phone numbers, students' IDs, students' names, and demographics, I would certainly stay away from that. I am not saying that you should be, copying and pasting people information, putting there, it can just disappear. I wouldn't do that. But when it comes to content creation, hey, if you feel very, very uneasy about it, then maybe you can do it one thing at a time. And again, look at what their policies are. Maybe there is a way to have sort of like a standalone installation of a program that's going to only work on your on your computer and nowhere else. Again, to be honest, I don't know if I care, in a sense that okay, it's fine. So I have a text that I have written, and now what? I'm not going to like edit it with ChatGPT because it's gonna take it. Okay, well, what if it does? Then I guess that's the way for me to spread my word anyway. Because again, if someone asks a question of ChatGPT, considering that there's already gazillions of materials there, then again, I am going to amount to a very, 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 very small percentage of that database, and to me, it really doesn't matter. I'm saying it's just pretty much my thinking is going to disappear in the sea, in the ocean of information. It's like like a drop of water in the ocean, right? So that's what that is. So again, I don't worry about that part. I only worry about the privacy aspect, right? Now, because again, when you think about it, these days, since everyone has access to ChatGPT, and we can analyze and data with it in very, very in a myriad of ways, there is a danger that, let's say, someone has an access to let's say email records, right? Again, in the past, it was not possible. Now, all I really need to do is upload I don't know, Excel file or whatever type of a file that has my conversations, and analyze them in certain ways, right? What does that person say about X, Y, and Z? And all of a sudden, in my email, well, I mentioned that part, writing to so and so. What does that mean? So for that reason, I would consider it a danger. I am not really afraid that ChatGPT is going to steal my creativity. I mean, if it does, then I guess more power to me, that it's worthy of again, being matched with gazillions of other materials that are already there. So that's that. Yes, Dorothy. So this is okay. Okay, so this is. Could you please elaborate on what it is that you just shared?
Oh, sure. Just another use case. One of my colleagues was working on an interactive to summarize our year for our team, and she placed some resources into Google Notebook LM and created podcasts, and then just took snippets of it and embedded it within the interactive. So that was something I thought was pretty interesting.
Nice. Absolutely. So there is, again, the whole myriad of those applications, and as time goes by, again, it's going to be only more interesting. I mean, there is a website where I can actually I uploaded a picture of me that started moving, and it acts like a chatbot. So now I can, even if I wanted to, share it as a link to and send it to my students, and you guys go ahead and practice your present perfect, with the chat bot, and I'm going to fix myself up some, I don't know, cup of coffee or something. So those things are just out there. We just need to, again, be mindful how to use them, take advantage, and take ownership for our students' benefits. Make sure that we are focused on skill and competency that students are attaining as a result of our instruction. So with that, I see it's 12:16 already. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your coming in.